On a cold February day in Sheffield, a 15-year-old boy's obsession with knives turned deadly, and a school corridor became the last place one teenager would ever walk. This is the story of how a moment of anger destroyed 2 lives and shattered a community. February 3, 2024. A cold, quiet Friday in Sheffield. The kind of day that slips by unnoticed. The kind of day that ends with homework, dinner, and sleep. But this wasn't going to be that kind of day. At All Saints Catholic High School, students had just returned from their lunch break. The corridors buzzed with the sound of sneakers squeaking on polished floors, the chatter of teenage voices, and the rustling of bags as pupils rushed back to class. Just another school day, or so it seemed. Among them was 15-year-old Harvey Willgoose. A boy with a kind smile and a warm heart. Teachers described him as bright, thoughtful, and respectful. His friends? They called him loyal, funny, and someone you could always trust. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but he made his presence felt, through kindness, through compassion, through quiet confidence. Also in the crowd that day was another 15-year-old boy. His name can't be shared, protected by law due to his age. A student in the same school, walking the same halls, but carrying something far more dangerous than just textbooks. What happened next would not just claim a young life, it would destroy 2. And it would leave a mark on this school, this city, and a grieving family that no time could ever erase. In just a few minutes, the silence of that cold February afternoon would be shattered by the sound of horror no school should ever hear. And from that moment forward, nothing would ever be the same. This is not just a story about one stabbing. It's a story about a generation grappling with fear, anger, and identity. Knife crime in schools is not a new problem, but it is a growing one. Young boys feeling the pressure to prove themselves, to survive, to be hard, sometimes at a devastating cost. Behind the headlines are real lives, real families shattered by grief. Like Harvey's. But change is possible. Schools, communities, and policymakers must come together to address the root causes. Bullying, mental health struggles, and the toxic culture of violence. And as a society, we must ask ourselves. Are we listening to our youth before it's too late? Because behind every statistic is a name. Behind every headline is a life lost. Harvey Willgoose was 15. Full of promise. Full of life. Taken too soon. Let his story be a warning, and a call to action. For the safety of our children. For the future of our communities. The question remains. What will we do next? The trial gripped the nation. In living rooms across the UK, families watched the news with disbelief. A 15-year-old boy, on trial for murder. A 15-year-old victim, buried far too soon. For the jury, the weight of justice was crushing. After days of testimony, evidence, and emotion, the verdict came down. Guilty of manslaughter. Not guilty of murder. The courtroom was silent, but outside, the world reacted loudly. To some, it was a fair judgment, a broken boy, traumatized and spiraling, who never meant to kill. But to others, it was devastating. He brought a knife to school, one parent said. He searched how to release anger. He posted threats online. And now a boy is dead. Harvey Willgoose's family wept. Their son, gone forever. No sentence, no justice system, could ever make that right. But the story didn't end in that courtroom. School the ripple effect, a nation's wake-up call. In schools across Sheffield, and beyond, a new kind of fear settled in. Parents asked. How did a 15-year-old even get a hunting knife? Teachers asked, could we have seen this coming? And students, quietly, asked themselves, am I safe here anymore? A national conversation ignited. Should schools have metal detectors? Are social media posts a warning sign, or just teenage bravado? And why are so many boys carrying knives to feel powerful? Experts warned of a knife crime epidemic among youth. One criminologist said, "It's not just about violence. It's about identity. These kids feel invisible, until they're feared." Politicians called for stricter laws on knife sales. Campaigners demanded mental health support and anti-bullying programs. But amid all the noise, one voice was missing. Candle the empty seat. Harvey Willgoose should have been finishing year 10. He should have been laughing with friends, revising for exams, dreaming of the future. Instead, there's an empty seat in his classroom. An empty chair at the dinner table. And a silence in his home that will never be filled. His death wasn't just tragic. It was a symptom of something deeper, darker, and far more dangerous. A teenage boy, obsessed with knives. A teenage boy, dead in a school hallway. And a community now asking, what will it take to stop the next one? The halls of All Saints Catholic High School would never feel the same again. Sirens echoed through the quiet Sheffield neighborhood as paramedics and police swarmed the school. Harvey Willgoose, just 15 years old, was rushed to the hospital. But despite their efforts, he was pronounced dead. A bright, kind, and funny young man, gone in seconds. The suspect, also 15, was arrested at the scene. The weapon, the hunting knife, was recovered. The city of Sheffield was stunned. A school, a child, a knife. Parents asked, how did we get here? And more importantly, how do we stop this from ever happening again? Graduation cap in court, two versions of the same story. In the courtroom, two narratives emerged. On one side, prosecutor Richard Thine KC laid it out bluntly. This wasn't an accident. This was purposeful aggression. A calculated act of revenge. He told the jury that the boy had ordered the knife before the falling out with Harvey. That he had posed with weapons online, boasted about being dangerous, and had long fantasized about violence. Mr. Thine highlighted internet searches that painted a chilling picture. Rage rooms. Letting out anger. Knife laws for under 18s. He wasn't scared, Thine argued. He was preparing. He wanted to show he was hard. Someone not to be messed with. Thine also played the CCTV footage in court, moment by moment, showing the boy unzip his coat, reach into his pocket, and stab Harvey with cold precision. Balance scale the defense, a boy at breaking point. But on the other side stood Gul Nawaz Hussain KC, defending the boy. His version was different. This wasn't murder, he said. This was a boy who snapped, a child who had faced months of bullying, threats, and fear. He described a young mind pushed to the edge. A boy who didn't feel safe at school. Who carried a knife not to attack, but to survive. The sad truth is, Mr. Hussain told the jury. Boys like him. And yes, even Harvey, were caught in a dangerous culture. A culture where teenage boys carry knives to feel powerful, to avoid being a victim. The defense claimed the stabbing was not premeditated murder, but a loss of control. A tragic, explosive moment in the life of a frightened child. Adult balance scale: 2 boys, 1 dead, 1 on trial. The courtroom sat silent as the closing statements ended. 2 boys. Both just 15. One buried in the cold ground. The other now facing the possibility of years, maybe life, behind bars. The jury was left with a harrowing question. Was it a planned attack, or a boy who just broke under pressure? It was just after lunch. The school bell had rung. Students were moving through the halls of All Saints Catholic High School, some joking, others hurrying to class. No one suspected that in mere seconds, something irreversible was about to happen. Harvey Willgoose, calm and composed, walked into the science corridor. He didn't know he was being watched. CCTV footage would later reveal it all. The defendant, hands in his pockets, followed Harvey. He wasn't walking aimlessly. He was hunting. Moments before the attack, another student noticed something strange. Harvey told him that the boy was acting like he had a knife tucked under his jumper. But Harvey thought he was bluffing. Tragically, he wasn't. In the hallway, the boy slowly unzipped his coat. He reached into his pocket, and pulled out the knife he had ordered online, a hunting knife, made for tearing through animal flesh, not school uniforms. In an instant, he lunged. Harvey didn't stand a chance. He was stabbed. Once, maybe twice, and collapsed as students screamed and ran for help. Teachers rushed in. Chaos broke out. But it was too late. Harvey Willgoose lay bleeding on the floor of a place that should have been safe. The boy stood there, knife still in hand. Later, he would tell the head teacher. "I think I stabbed him. Once, maybe twice." But prosecutors would argue otherwise. He knew what he'd done, then, and now. Prosecutors didn't mince words. They called him obsessed with weapons. He wasn't just curious. He was fixated. And dangerously so. At just 13 years old, he was already talking about shanking someone, prison slang for stabbing. Not in fear. Not in self-defense. But in casual conversation, as if it were something to be proud of. As he got older, the obsession deepened. He began posting videos online, showing off knives, posing with them, spinning them in his hands, acting like he was invincible. When asked why, he didn't hesitate. "I wanted people to know I carried a knife. I wanted them to think I was dangerous." And his internet search history? Chilling. Calculated. He wasn't Googling how to protect himself. He was looking up violence. Waiting for someone to swing so I can let out my anger. That wasn't fear. That was preparation. A mindset that didn't belong to a scared child. But to someone gearing up for a violent confrontation. And it wouldn't be long before he found his moment. In any school, arguments come and go. Teenagers clash, opinions differ, and friendships break and heal in the blink of an eye. But this time, something lingered. Just days before the stabbing, Harvey and the defendant found themselves on opposite sides of a minor dispute between two boys, a conflict that should have ended in a handshake, or at most, a few cold stares. But instead of cooling down, tensions began to simmer. Silent glances turned into visible unease. Mutual friends sensed the shift. And what no one knew then, was that the defendant was already preparing for something far more serious. Long before the argument even began, he had ordered a hunting knife online. Not a pocket knife. Not a tool. But a weapon, sharp, deadly, and illegal to carry. He'd searched for it. He'd chosen it. And he'd hidden it. In conversations with classmates, he dropped strange comments. One student remembered him pretending to have a knife under his jumper, trying to look tough. Harvey, perhaps trusting too much, thought he was bluffing. He shrugged it off. But the warnings were already there. The defendant had previously talked about stabbing people. He'd even used the slang term, shanking, when he was just 13. He wasn't just curious about knives, he was obsessed. Videos he posted on social media showed him brandishing blades. His internet history. A disturbing mix of knife reviews, rage rooms, and search terms like waiting for someone to swing so I can let out my anger. This wasn't fear. This wasn't defense. This was a build-up. A storm waiting to break. And on the morning of February 3rd, it would.